Choice, your creative superpower. We have the power to manifest as we dedicate attention to our thoughts, but often miss opportunity to achieve the greatest good. Your superpower is waiting to be unleashed to unlock a fuller, more rewarding world for all. Join us every Thursday at noon Mountain Time for Choice, your creative superpower with Zoe Muro. And now, here's Zoe.
Hi, folks. Welcome to the New Thought Media Network, and welcome to Choice, your creative superpower. My name is Zoe Muro, and I am once again delighted to be your host. If you're coming back, it's good to have you here again. And if this is your first time, well, welcome. We are here each Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 12 noon Mountain time, to explore how you can use the awesome superpower of choice to create the greatest good in your life experience. I'm a religious science practitioner at the Oakland Center for Spiritual Living in Northern California and a transformational coach. I work with people who are looking to live their lives to the fullest. Today, in episode 30, we'll be looking at choice and freedom. Choice and freedom. It just sounds immediately like a natural pairing, doesn't it? You know, we often use phrases like having freedom of choice or being freedom to choose or being free to choose. But does freedom allow for choice? Or does choosing engender freedom? I think it's fair to say that freedom is a complex topic in and of itself. To be able to understand how freedom and choice work together with one another, let's consider what freedom means. Now, I can't help but mention Chris Christopherson and probably more famously Janis Joplin's take on this when they opined that freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. And aren't you glad I'm not singing again? It's like over the ages, humankind has sought freedom from and freedom to. Groups, organizations, movements, communities, countries, all have been founded in the name of freedom. And, I'll tell you, dictionary definitions of freedom don't really provide much clarity for our conversation. But I have to say that I do like this concise definition, which says, freedom is the absence of necessity, coercion, or constraint in choice or action. Right? Freedom is the absence of necessity, coercion, or constraint in choice or in action. So we're looking at both freedom from and freedom to. Here's a question for you. I want you to think about this. If you could choose just one, would you choose freedom from or would you choose freedom to? Think about it. If any time you had an opportunity to make a choice about freedom, you could only choose one, from or to, which one would you pick? No, I'm not going to tell you my answer right now. Maybe later. Fortunately, though, we don't have to limit ourselves to choosing between freedom from and freedom to. We have the opportunity to work towards either. So let's see how the from to choices might differ as we go through all of this. If I'm looking for freedom from something, I first had to acknowledge that in some way my freedom was being compromised and then choose to address it. How I choose to address it probably isn't about stopping something that I'm doing, but rather taking action to cause something to happen. So freedom from religious persecution could require changes in education or changes in law. perhaps even where we choose to live. We've certainly seen this play out over the centuries. In fact, I would be willing to say that freedom from always requires a corresponding action or actions. Hmm. I wonder, maybe every freedom from has a corresponding freedom to. In a sense, it's a matter of perspective, if you think about it. I mean, you can say you want freedom from religious persecution, or you could say you want freedom to practice your religion. Freedom from is looking for someone else to stop doing something, while it provides an opportunity for the seeker to do something. I would say that virtually every freedom that Group A wants, Group B will see as an infringement upon their freedom. So, another aspect of choice here, folks, choosing which group you relate to. That becomes a really important choice for you. For centuries, governments have been using the word freedom in whatever way works best for their own political agendas. It's not uncommon to see discussions of freedom from something to be pushed aside because the perceived restrictions on freedom provide security. And what could be more freeing than to be secure? Or so the logic goes, anyway. I mean, I'll give you a very simple example. You're getting ready to go on a flight. Well, back in the day, they just let you on the plane. Like there was no stopping you. There wasn't this whole frisking and body scan and all of that. So doing those things is an imposition on our freedom, in essence. But we do this for security. I once had a professor in college who said that we will most likely be willing to give up our freedoms in the name of security. And wow, it's amazing how right he turned out to be. Well, there are even those who believe that choice inhibits freedom. Their thinking goes like this: the more choices you have, the more effort and energy you must expend, and the less likely you are to feel unencumbered, otherwise known as free. This reminds me of a movie came out quite a few years ago called Moscow on the Hudson with Robin Williams. His character is a defecting circus performer from Russia. And the first time that he sees an American supermarket, he's looking at this extensive variety of coffee products for the very first time. He's looking at, and he literally passes out because the choices were just so immense. Bit of an extreme. Rather than chalking up perspectives to political gamesmanship or to humor, I can understand what they're getting at, but here's the thing. I have pointed out how much our choices are based on our beliefs and our experiences. So differences in how people look at freedom and how they look at choice, well, those have to be considered as well. For me, given the philosophy of New Thought, which is, in essence, the cornerstone of my spiritual practice and my beliefs, I know that existence is even more grand, more enormous, more abundant than I could ever imagine. That means for me that my choices are quite literally unbounded. And that, to me, is freedom, or at least part of freedom. Not only being able to choose, but to have my choice co-create my best existence. That is definitely freedom. Now, having said that, freedom isn't exactly free. It definitely takes a concerted effort to recognize freedom, just as it does to recognize our choice points. Choice points being the opportunities to make a choice. And then it takes a concerted effort to live according to those choices. So, for example, if I choose to be free from judging others, then I'm also choosing not simply to be neutral or uncaring, but literally to be more loving, to be more compassionate, to be more understanding. Those would be choices that I make. But not not everyone would necessarily feel the necessity to act in the same way. So I have chosen to be free from judgment, and I have chosen to be more loving, more open and understanding. And I will make choices, most likely, that will be consistent with that to ensure my success, to not harbor resentments, to not blame or shame, to encourage, to support, to uplift others. Hey, uplift myself for that matter. This is where the idea of choice and freedom can get really tricky. If I adhere to a certain moral code, doesn't that mean by definition that I have limited myself? I mean, the very word immoral carries with it the idea of non-conformance. And non-conformists will tell you that they are the ones who are truly free. Gets tricky, doesn't it? I get it. I get it. Personally, I choose to uphold my moral code, and I don't feel the least bit restricted or constrained by it, because my moral code is an extension of my spirit, of my beliefs, of my values. Now, I think at this point, it would be important to note that freedom doesn't necessarily mean ease or comfort. If you're the type of person who prefers to have everything laid out for you, well, choice can be a burden, not a freedom. I think this is why some people are such strong believers in fundamentalism. And by fundamentalism, I mean a strict adherence to basic principles of a given subject or discipline. There's no room for debate, no room for doubt. Fundamentalists see this as freedom. Non-fundamentalists see this as anything but freedom. So I suppose we all choose our freedoms when we have the opportunity to do so. Correction. We all choose our freedoms when we are aware that we have the opportunity to do so. Laws, morals, rules, all of those can be seen and have been seen as lacking or inhibiting freedom. But is it freedom to be able to drive on whichever side of the road you choose? Or is that an invitation to disaster? Is it freedom to take advantage of the gullible? Or is that scamming and stealing? Is it freedom to be able to make a choice of A rather than B? Or is it a sacrifice because you have to give up something that's appealing? Is it freedom to say, no, I'm not going to wear a mask in this crowded room? Or is it infringing upon the freedom of those in the room who are concerned about airborne illnesses because of their health status? So you see, we choose many, many times what we consider to be free and what we consider to be restriction. If we all agreed on what freedom is, we'd have no slavery. We'd have no forced labor. We'd have no political prisoners. But then again, we would have to choose to expand our understanding of what humanity truly is, what we means, as opposed to what they mean. If we cannot see the we in this world, and we continue to see the they in this world, then in essence, we're on the path to denying freedom of some sort. And of course, it does get to be extreme, slavery being the most likely example of that. Viktor Frankl, psychologist and a Holocaust survivor, wrote that the last of human freedoms is to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. So think about these circumstances, for instance. You wake up in the morning and you stub your toe on the way to the bathroom. You are free to choose to see this as a harbinger of a bad day or simply a stubbed toe. Finding yourself at the back of a long queue, you can choose to adhere to common civility and wait your turn, or you can push to the front of the line because your needs are more urgent than anybody else's. How about this one? As a recovering alcoholic, and I will always be in recovery technically, I can choose to see my abstaining from alcohol as a restriction, a lack of freedom, or I can see it as a way to enhance my freedom by throwing off the chains of addiction and its consequences. And in doing so, being able to actually live. So with all apologies to the songwriters and singers, how about this? Freedom is just another word for knowing you can choose. And again, you're free from my singing. I spoke about freedom from and freedom to. Gaining freedom from something, whether it's a circumstance or a condition, oftentimes is not the end all and be all we might want it to be. For example, let's say we're mired in debt and we seek financial freedom. Yeah, I've been there and I've done that. In fact, I was many hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt at one point in my life with absolutely nothing to show for it other than potential lawsuits and a whole lot of pain. When I was able to get my head clear and take steps to free myself from that debt, I realized that unless I made a very significant series of changes in my life, I was simply going to fall right back into that black hole again. So I made a number of choices which would enable me to pay off my debt and ensure that I didn't repeat old patterns. It involved divesting myself of some possessions, moving to a much, much smaller place, finding ways to stretch every nickel I could scrape up. It was, to be perfectly honest, a very painful and restrictive way to live. But it led to my financial freedom. And even today, I'm free to choose whether I will acquire something or not. But it's always with the understanding that I'm living within my means, because that provides freedom for me. See, we have a number of comments here. I want to see what's going on. Okay, let's see. Hi, Wayne. Good to see you once again. He's up in Calgary. And hello, Christopher. Detroit, Michigan. Good to have you here. And Luis, good to see you once again. Hi, Lori. You like the idea of choosing the group, huh? It becomes very important. Let's see. Yes, I'm glad you like this topic. I've really felt very connected to this one, very definitely. Okay, so let's see. Where was I going to go with this? At the risk of being too political, in the United States, we have a constitution. And that constitution has a series of 10 amendments called the Bill of Rights. In this set of amendments, there are concepts like free speech, freedom from illegal search and seizure of property, a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury, etc. It's all there in the Constitution with these amendments. But those declarations of freedom, they're not guarantees of freedom. It takes vigilance. It takes oversight. It takes education. It takes dissemination of factual information. It takes election of truly civic-minded leaders. It takes oversight of many different organizations. It takes many actions that we, the people, must choose to take and uphold if we are to truly be free. I want to end today in kind of an unusual way. I want to use a series of quotes regarding freedom from a very, very disparate group of people, because I believe you'll see how each quote brings another aspect of choice and freedom into play. My hope is that you're inspired to dig much more deeply into what freedom means to you and what choices you make regarding freedom or because of freedom. Okay, so this is a pretty extensive list. But I think that each of these adds something very significant to the discussion. So I'm going to start with one from Pearl Buck. None who have always been free can understand the terrible, fascinating power and the hope of freedom to those who are not free. Anytime that we talk about freedom, folks, we have to talk about those who are not free. And I'm not just talking about people who literally are living in slavery. I'm talking about people who are not free because they do not have the same freedoms that each of us has. Let's see. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. None are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. From Nelson Mandela. To be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedoms of others. Oh, here's a quote that Luis gave me. It says, I like what Jesus said. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. So let's choose fruit. Let's choose truth. Let's seek the truth. Amen. I like that a lot. Let's see. From Maya Angelou. The truth is, no one of us can be free until everybody is free. From Eleanor Roosevelt, freedom makes a huge requirement of every human being. With freedom comes responsibility. And working off that idea of responsibility, or what I might refer to as a moral imperative, these next three go together. First is from Peter Marshall. It says, may we think of freedom not as the right to do as we please, but as the opportunity to do what is right. Pope John Paul II said, freedom consists not in doing what we like, but in having the right to do what we ought. And Charles Kingsley, there are two freedoms. The false, where a man is free to do what he likes. The true, where he is free to do what he ought. I like those ideas of looking at freedom not as simply permission to do whatever it is that you would like to do, but actually to be able to bring about a world that works for everyone, in essence. And then we have some quotes that really talk to the essence of what freedom can be. Frank Lloyd Wright said, freedom is from within. And Wayne gave me one here. I'll bring this one up. Wayne says, this is from Viktor Frankl, we have a right to choose our attitude. Absolutely. Which ties into my next one from Jean-Paul Sartre. Freedom is what you do with what's been done to you. Rollo May said, freedom is man's capacity to take a hand in his own development. It is our capacity to mold ourselves. Now, I didn't do anything to remove any of the pronouns here. I left the quotes exactly the way they were, with the understanding that when they're saying man, we mean humankind. James McGreevy says, to be able to love and live in freedom means to be able to make godly decisions. To make godly decisions, we have to surrender our egos and all the falsity and shame that goes with it. I love that one. And that one leads me to the last one. This comes from, of all people, Jim Morrison, who said, the most important kind of freedom is to be what you really are. The most important kind of freedom is to be what you really are. I really like that. Those of you who have listened to our prayer time or who understand affirmative prayer know that what we are doing in affirmative prayer is we are aligning ourselves with our truth. To be able to manifest what we want in this life, the more closely we can align with our divinity, with our essence, with our truth, the greater our manifestation. The most important kind of freedom is to be what you really are. Love it. Folks, as always, I've presented some ideas and perspectives, but it's your ideas, your definitions, your perspectives, your mindset that are going to inform your choices. Okay. That is freedom. That is freedom. Well, that's it for this week. If you would like an opportunity to come on the show, and have a conversation about any of these topics relating to choice, or any topic relating to choice for that matter. It doesn't have to be one we've already covered. I'd like to give you that opportunity. I'd love to hear your perspectives, your experiences. And as always, if you have a topic regarding choice that you'd like me to cover and you don't want to actually be a guest on the show, that's okay. Just send me an email at zodemuro@gmail.com. And I'd be more than happy to entertain whatever you bring. So I wanted to thank you folks for spending this time with me this week. And I want to encourage you to go to ntmedia.org to check out all that we have to offer. If you're looking for prayer, if you're looking for meditation, information, discussion, we've got all of that. Oh, Christopher, let's see. How can you connect with me? Through this email address, zodemuro@gmail.com. Okay, zodemuro@gmail.com. Okay, let's see. What else do I want to say? Before I forget. Today at 12 noon Pacific time, that's 1 p.m. Mountain time, I want you to check out Finding the Joy in the Journey with the magnificent Gina Calvario-Krupka. That's Reverend Gina Calvario-Krupka. And today her special guest is Reverend Dr. David Alt. Should be a magnificent show. If you have the opportunity to do so, and the inclination to do so, please go to ntmedia.org/donate and help us bring all of the goodness that the New Thought Media Network has to the largest possible audience as we work to make this a world that works for everyone. I look forward to seeing you again next week. And until we meet again, I hope that you choose wisely. But choose. There's your freedom. Much love. Many, many blessings. Namaste.
Choice. Your creative superpower. We have the power to manifest as we dedicate attention to our thoughts, but often miss opportunity to achieve the greatest good. Your superpower is waiting to be unleashed to unlock a fuller, more rewarding world for all. Join us every Thursday at noon Mountain Time for Choice, Your Creative Superpower with Zoe DeMuro. And now,